Hi, welcome again to Who's Who in Southern Alberta. And fortunately, we still have Jim with us to continue with the saga of the Crow's Nest Pass and the whole development of Southern Alberta. And before we get going, Jim, I'd like to just read a quote that, these things come back to haunt you, don't they? This is from the 3rd of December, 1960, from an article from the Lethbridge Herald. This is what he says. I can picture a great mural in some new public building in Lethbridge showing fiddlers surrounded by peagans and buffalo, with Nunak's Toku in the background, pointing out to the vast plains from Cardston through Raymond to Lethbridge with these lines below, quote, "The land will produce excellent crops of all kinds of grains." And that's Peter Fiddler, February 2nd, 1793. Well, where's this mural, Jim?
I don't know. We're waiting for it. I don't think... Maybe the native department in the university should get a development and show the Pekani. That's something that bothers me, the way our geographic naming board has spelled Pegan, because it entices people into pronouncing it as pagan. They were the Pekani. There's no reason why they should be called pagans. Yeah. But that's the way they spelled it. Now in the States they spell it P-I-E, don't they?
It's the opposite way, just to confuse us.
It mucks us all up.
I should just maybe point out that this man, Peter Fiddler, is the man that we hope you're going to hear a lot about in the next little while, because up until now nobody seems to know much about him. But really, 1992 is the bicentennial of Southern Alberta, because in that year a Hudson's Bay Company explorer came down into this area and gave us the first written description of Southern Alberta. And we have his journal right here. We hope that it's never been published up to now. We hope to publish it in the next year or so and make it available, because it's just filled with fascinating stuff, right?
That's right, David.
And you were going to mention something about the buffalo jump.
Yes.
How about telling us that now?
Yeah, well, the thing that gets me was the way he described it. They're up on a plain. Now, I don't know quite whether that buffalo jump, I think it's closer to High River than the one that we are celebrating now. But he had the old man and the boys lying down behind piles of buffalo chips or brush. And then the young men with their horses would drive the buffalo in. Now, they have a tendency to scatter. So these little guys, as the buffalo got close to them, would jump up and yell and wave their arms to drive the buffalo in. And so as the buffalo got closer to the fall-off, more people would stand up and shout and wave their arms to keep them going that way. And then there was another thing that got me, and that was there were always 2 or 3 men down at the bottom of the buffalo jump, in case some buffalo got away, because Fiddler said that at one time 3 buffalo were wounded, but they got away. And apparently they talked to the other buffalo, because they had a hard time getting buffalo back onto that buffalo jump for a long time after that. Now that may sound like a little superstition, but that's the reason why the men were at the bottom, to kill any buffalo that escaped that jump without injury. And I've often thought of, I'd have to get a little white boy in there with a little Indian boy, so we could get them to hide behind buffalo chips. And the only way I could get them in there, this is a dream that I've had, was to take them up to the Crow's Nest and put them into the Old Man Cave. Now, Jimmy McGilligan told me that the Old Man Cave in the old days was much more elaborate. It's just a hole in the wall now. And there were stones there. People used to come, this river coming out of the ground, the source of the Old Man River, which of course is another river now. And they tore all the stuff down, took all the rocks, and the railway goes right past it. But I'd have this boy go into the cave, fall down and bang his head, and find an opening in the cave that he could go through into that mountain, the sleeping giant, where the old man was. And the old man could touch him on the head, and he could go back in time, and he could go out of that mountain and join these Indians in that buffalo jump and hide down behind the brush and the buffalo chips and describe how these Indians lived. For instance, one of the things was one morning there was a tremendous rumbling, and everybody was terrified because other Indians were coming to attack them by surprise. And then they found it was the young men had rounded up a bunch of horses and were driving them down on the camp just to scare the elders. Well, that sort of thing, you could work into a story, almost a little adventure story. And then to get him back out again, he'd suddenly wake up and find himself lying on the floor of the old man cave. But those stories, see, nothing was being published. And I thought that this was one way to get the story over. Mm-hmm. Now, the description of the buffalo pound, they're usually mentioned together, but they're not the same thing at all. Because they would get a nice little coulee, put very strong timbers in, and then drive the buffalo in there, and then they would be stuck like they were in a corral. Mm-hmm. And then the chief would go in with his rifle, and he'd go punk. And that was the only time it was used. And then the young men would go in and kill the rest of the buffalo, and then the women were left to clean up as usual. But those things that people in Alberta would like to know, I'm sure they would. Mm-hmm. And that's why I was surprised. You see, I've been sort of hors de combat, I've been out of action for so long. My memory isn't as good as it used to be. But that story, if you publish the journal, I'm sure people will enjoy reading those things that Fiddler described.
Well, as I mentioned before, last week I guess it was, we have a program at the Historical Research Center called Books on Demand, and when we get 50 people that show an interest, then we get around to getting serious about getting it published. And so what we're trying to do right now is drum up interest, and I'm sure that after listening to the program you can realize that the Fiddler's Journal is a gold mine. It talks about the first Chinooks, the first mention of coal, first mention of cactus. It was the first written description of Southern Alberta, and we hope to do something about it. Okay, now let's get back to the story of Jim Cousins, teacher, mm-hmm.
And
then, well, you really built the education system in Southern Alberta, didn't you?
I kind of started. I taught everything. I used to say I taught everything from the kindergarten to graduate school because I taught graduate studies in the University of Alberta in summer sessions, I don't know why they asked me. I guess they were short of good men sometimes, but they used to ask me to come up. See, the interesting thing is that Walter Johns, who later became the president of the university, was the same age as I was. And he started his university career in 1938, the year I started mine. The only difference was Walter had a PhD from Cornell, and I was taking Polyag 1, starting after getting my grade 12 cleared away. And but I took courses in Greek history and everything from Walter, and he was a good talker too, and so we became good friends. And so he used to ask me to come up, and I'd ask him to come down and give talks and so on. Now he's gone. I thought that I'd go first, but he's disappeared now. But he was a big inspiration for me because he could tell us stories. They may be from the Iliad and the Odyssey and other things like that, but it was the stuff I wanted to know anyway, just the same as I'm sure people would love to see these descriptions of the buffalo jumps and so on. I'm glad that the province is, or the whoever's in charge, is making something out of these buffalo jumps. This one, head smashed in one, is it's a good one, all right. But I'd like to get somebody to study that journal closely to find which one Fiddler was describing. I don't know how many buffalo jumps there are in Southern Alberta.
Well, McGregor, who you know,
yeah.
I'm not sure if he's still alive or not.
No, I don't know.
Jim McGregor wrote this book on Peter Fiddler, and he wrote this about the time that you were doing a lot of oral talking about Peter Fiddler.
That's right, yeah.
And he mentions now, I don't know whether you think he's right or not, but he felt that the buffalo jump that Fiddler saw was the one up near Cayley.
Yeah.
That one there.
Well, it's somewhere in there because he seemed to be going down towards the southeast somewhat. And if there are buffalo jumps, then we should get some of our viewers to go and explore them and let us know where they are. Then maybe we can find out where they drove them along and where they kids and the old men hid down behind the bushes and the manure.
I should also mention that Buckingham House, which is near the community of Elk Point,
Yeah.
which is northeast of Edmonton, they're building a fur trade interpretive center there. The Alberta Culture is building it, and it'll open in the next year or so.
Oh, that'll be interesting. Yeah.
And of course, that ties in with Fiddler's story, because that's where Peter Fiddler left from on November 8th, 1792.
Yeah.
Okay, we're getting back to Jim Cousins again, because I want to know when you came to Lethbridge. The story I hear is that when they built the first junior high school, which I was one of the people
Yeah.
in it, they brought selected teachers from all over the Southern
That's
Alberta.
right, yeah. I know Bill White was one, and I can't remember the names of them now, but Lawrence Buzzard was a great guy. He was a superintendent for attending summer sessions. And in those days, our results used to come out in a little bulletin. So he knew who all the top-notch scholars were. And at that time, I was doing very well. And so the first thing he did, he talked to Jim Wishart and asked if I'd be ready to leave Coleman. And he phoned me and asked me if I'd like to come down. I said, yeah, I think I would. It's about time I moved anyway. The town doesn't seem to be growing anymore. And so we moved into this Lethbridge Junior High. And that was a one-year school. And Con Miller and Bill White, and oh, gee, I wish I could remember the names of the fellows. I'll remember as soon as I get out of here. But they were all top-notch teachers, and so that our results in that first year were quite good. And then, of course, they opened Wilson Junior High on the next year, and then this was given the name Hamilton. So for 1 year, we had a Lethbridge Junior High School. But and I taught in it, so I'm.
And you
quite proud
taught
of
me
that.
band. You probably don't even remember that fancy
No.
band you had. That
Oh, we tried. Well, I was a musician. See, you're a Welshman. You're supposed to know all about music. Yeah, well, you kids were good. You and your trombone, I remember that was good. Yeah, and I was always stuck with music because nobody else wanted to do it. And I enjoyed it because, after all, in the old country, they taught us music. We had to learn to sing tonic sol fa. And I took piano lessons in the old country before I came here. The result was I had no difficulty in transferring from what we used to call the old notation into tonic sol fa. And so I could read the music, and I always sang in choirs, and I could always read well. And I think that was part of my background. And I always liked to get the kids to be able to read music too, if they could. But I'm sure most of them liked to come into music because they had large classes. And I didn't make them too theoretical either.
Then you went to the LCI,
Yeah.
and you taught mainly social studies.
Yes,
is that right?
right,
For
yeah.
about how many years were you?
Well, right up until 1956, I guess it was, or 57 when the college opened. And then the university, you see, this is where Walter Johns appears. He knew what my record was, and he recommended that I be put in charge of this college because it was basically, when it started, a university section. And then Lawrence Buzzard had made a survey in the United States of the community college idea. So we decided we were going to combine the whole bunch, so we'd have university credits and business education and anything else we needed. And so it gradually grew from that. And when the university was formed here, we had a student body ready for them. So that when they moved over to the university, I moved over with them. And that was the reason why the University of Lethbridge was able to graduate a class in its first year of operation, because the college had prepared a bunch of corpses for them.
Now, for years, and I'm sure there's lots of people, as soon as I say this, they're going to say, hey, I remember him now. You were known as Dean Cousins, right?
That's right. A lot of people think that that's my name. And I was dean of the college, but I wasn't dean at the university. But people have been loath to give it up. And somebody said, oh, you're Dean Cousins. I said, yeah, I'm Jim Cousins. But after all, in a college, you see, they have deans all over the place now. But a college has a dean as its head. A university has a president or chancellor or whatever the word is in England or in the United States. But Everybody knows me as Dean Cousins.
As a master, again, we're going back, master, teacher, storyteller, how did you adapt to the different kind of world as an administrator?
I didn't like it as much. I don't think they thought I was that good because I didn't last too long as an administrator. But there was the idea of organizing you had to do. But I liked teaching better. Well, you can see I like talking. The only one who can beat me at talking is my wife, but she's not available at the moment, so I'm the talker. But one of the young Draffin boys said, "Yeah, you're a good storyteller." I never thought of myself. I thought I was teaching him history, and I like the history better than some of these other psychological approaches to history that were all the rage there for a while. I don't know what social studies is now. I don't think history belongs in there anymore. You see, when it started in Alberta, it was a combination of history and geography, supposed to be both together. Mm-hmm. But it wandered off into the other phases of social history, and I don't think I could teach social studies now. I could still teach history, though, if I had to.
Now, Mr. Buzzard was into history too. His degree was in history, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah. And he was watching me to make sure that he'd give me suggestions. And I remember he was telling us how to prepare the kids for the final examination. I went to Lawrence and we talked, and I took his advice. But some of the other guys, they were kind of snobbish. They'd say, "Well, who does he think he is telling us how to teach?" Well, he was an experienced teacher. He had been a principal in a school in northern Alberta, and he really knew how to prepare his students for examinations, because that's a different story, when you have to pass some examinations that some guys way off are going to write for you, and then you have to figure out what they mean or what, because there's lots of times when I do a crossword puzzle, I'm not quite sure what the definition is. And I'm sure in history a lot of the kids found the same thing.
How many years were you at the high school as dean before you moved over to the new?
I don't know. Was it 63 that that building was open? I know I started in 57, so it'd be about 6 years, I guess.
I see. Now, one of the things that and I don't know if you ever thought about this, but I always thought that first building, they should have turned around to face the coulee, because there is a gorgeous coulee overlooking the, this building overlooking that coulee would have been very attractive. But I guess at that time they weren't thinking coolies like they were later on.
Well, they weren't so sure that the college was going to survive. After all, the first year I taught half in, my teachers too, half in LCI and half in the college. So we had to share. And I had a budget of $10,000. Well, you didn't do much planning and building and so on. And then later, once the act was passed and it got into the mill, then they were able to plan for the building. Well, at that time, I wasn't in charge of doing that kind of thing.
I heard somewhere along the line that this was the first public junior college in Canada. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. There were others that were church colleges, but they weren't recognized. See, we were recognized by the University of Alberta as, for instance, the one in Calgary, Mount Royal, was a United Church college, and it was recognized all right, but it wasn't a public junior college. And there was a city college in Vancouver that claimed to be a college, but it wasn't a public junior college the way ours was. And we weren't intended to be an imitation of the United States, but the people in Edmonton who passed the law decided we were going to be called not a junior college, but a community college. And of course that's what it is now, and it's I can remember saying this to Lawrence Buzzard. He said, "How many students do you think you'll have in 10 years? I said, "About 150. And he said, "Yeah, but where are they going to come from?" And look at them now. The university outnumbers them, and the college outnumbers my 150. You wouldn't even see them over there. But that just shows how things change, how ideas grow, and how people are needing specialized education all the time now. So I still think of the college as my institution, and also the university. So I'm sort of bilabial.
When the big row, and that would have been what, 66, about whether they should move over to the west side or whether they should stay with the college. Where did you sit on that?
Well, I would have thought that we could have built right there on that campus. But see, what's worrying me now about the university is the tremendous stress on business education. It dominates arts and science, and to me, a university is arts and science. Those are the things that count so much. I don't mean that you don't need literature and language and so on. This is the arts and science that I'm talking about. But everybody's going in for business now. I was amazed at the number that are graduating with MBAs or what is the
Bachelor
of Management or something like that, because we're all going to be able to sell and not to produce, apparently. But that's just my special worry. I won't be around anyway. You see, when I'm 82 now, I haven't got too far to go before they shout bingo on me.
Come now. I want to touch upon the trip that you made, your little public relations scheme. Some of the people may remember this. This goes back to the early 50s when you went with the Chamber of Commerce. How did you get into that?
I don't know. I got a feeling that Lawrence Buzzard must have had something to do with it, and Gilbert Patterson. And they got me, and they planned the whole thing out. And we got, Sven Eriksson, there's the fellow that was the leader in the Chamber of Commerce at the time. And he gave me a sort of a truck, and I've got pictures of it somewhere. And we drove around, and they made arrangements for the Chambers of Commerce in every town that we went into. We had a place to stay, and we had a lunch and dinner, and we talked about this part of the world, how good it was, how irrigated it was, and all the rest of that, and tell them stories about it and so on. And then on to the next town and so on. And we went all around southern Alberta and northern Montana. And
did it make quite an impact, or did you ever hear about it?
I don't know. Sven Eriksson thought it was good. He wanted me to go next year, but I said I couldn't go because I had to go back to university. And he canceled the whole thing. I thought somebody else might go and do the same thing. But when he found I couldn't go, he didn't continue it. But it just shows you the connections between all the community members, Chamber of Commerce, the school boards and superintendents and teachers and principals and so on. They all helped in some way or another to get this city. This is an educational city right now. University, college, high schools, and everything else.
So you would say from the very beginning that there was a lot of support from all the different
I think so, yeah. They may not have known what they were all about, mind you, but they thought that was a good idea anyway. But it was rather suspicious. The people that we got in the first year of the university, some of them took our word for it that it was recognized by the university. But it took a little while because the university wasn't sure what they were going to do. First of all, our students registered at the university. Then they changed that and they registered at Lethbridge. And then they were going to give them the credits in Edmonton. And then it just kept changing back and forth as they tried to figure out where we fitted into the plan. And finally, we decided that we'd give our own credits and transfer them to Edmonton, which is the way most community colleges do now. Only the university had to recognize the college as a real institution. And of course, with me there, they couldn't do anything else. We had a lot of good teachers.
That might be a good place to say goodbye, because when we're talking about an institution, our guest for the last 2 weeks is really an institution, an educational institution in Southern Alberta. And he's going on because we've got his tapes, and from now for the next 50 years, you'll be able to plug those into your car stereo and relive the history from Peter Fiddler to the first decade of Lethbridge. Great stories, and I'm sure most of you will want to have one of those for your car stereo. And also, don't forget the great book we're going to put out, right, Jim?
You got to see that.
Peter Fiddler's Journal, a record of the first exploration of Southern Alberta. and 1992 is Southern Alberta's bicentennial. I hope you get all excited, because we are. See you next week. Thanks a lot.